So, everyone, I found a weird ass thought experiment that explains the kind of person that I am, and might explain the kind of person that you are. Now, this doesn't mean that I or you or anybody based on this thought experiment is evil or good. It just basically means the kind of person that we are philosophically. What we would do in this certain instance that is the thought experiment. Uh, Basically, a thought experiment divides a situation into the circumstances that would force you to make one of two decisions. One being sacrifice the many for the few, or one that basically says that acting in a way which would inflict the situation, even if it just killed one person compared to five or more, let's say, uh, would still be an evil choice. Now, I'm the latter. Now, I'll explain this, and you can see what I'm saying. Um, if a trolley was going down a track, and there was two tracks, and if you didn't do anything, it would kill five people that are tied to the tracks. And now there's only two decisions that you can make. And if you flip the switch, and this is the only thing you can do, or not do anything at all, it would go down the other track, but it would kill one person. Do you flip that switch? Now, logical people out there would say, yeah, you flip the switch so that five people don't die, and then only one person does die. But I'm actually the kind of person that would say I wouldn't even touch the switch. Now, why would I not even touch the switch? Why would I not just sacrifice one person compared to five people that are tied to the track? Both are tied to the track. But I would say that in choosing, I would actually become the villain. Now, this is a very philosophical and ideological discussion. There's other philosophical experiments, like if you were in a balloon and there was five other children in it, and you knew that the balloon could stay up if you only threw one child off, and you were the only one that could operate it because the other ones weren't tall enough, or they were children, or something like that. That they simply couldn't operate it. It isolates it to this very specific circumstance. And if you didn't throw that child off, you and five other or four other children would die. I still wouldn't throw that child off. And why would I do this? Why would I choose always to not act and allow more people to die as a result? Um, it comes down to the oldest, the oldest philosophical experiment in the book. Should you accept to do wrong in order to achieve the most right? Should you accept to sacrifice the few for the many? Uh, Granted that you were the one doing the sacrificing. Would you do the sacrificing? And there is no instance in which I would. Unfortunately, or perhaps fortunately, I simply couldn't be the executioner of the few in favor of the many. And this kind of plays into my religious, spiritual, philosophical view of the world. We shouldn't simply sacrifice the few for the sake of the many, and I mean life-wise. I don't mean like, okay, you got to pay more taxes for the many if you're the individual. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about sacrificing even one individual for a group, so that that group can survive the one of it, even though that one individual would die. And this does have implications that are vast, and the the truth of the matter is that when you pose it this way, most people will say, "No, I want to sacrifice the individual," but it's not always that simple in real life. Uh, it comes down to much more complicated decisions to make in order to save the many in exchange for the sacrifices of the few. It's not always life, and it's most of the time not always a black and white choice. a lot of the time, the individual does have to make sacrifices to help the many, but that doesn't mean that they lose their life. But it also plays into soldiers, warriors. They are willing to sacrifice their lives so that the many can be free and that they can be protected. But in recent times, especially in the United States, it doesn't really boil down to that. Because a lot of the time, when soldiers die, it doesn't necessarily translate to everybody being more safe. That doesn't make their sacrifice any less. That doesn't mean they're any less noble or valuable to our society. It just means that their sacrifices are often only benefited or benefiting the wealthy and the strong political hierarchy. And that's unfortunate. It's true in a lot of countries, but that's the case. It's not as cut and dry as it used to be. And this thought experiment really gets down to that. It gets down to military expectations of the few. It gets down to taxes. It gets down to the political system that we observe now. If the wealthy did sacrifice a lot more for the many, then we wouldn't have nearly as much poverty. We simply wouldn't. And that's very similar to the Trolly experiment. But wherever you side on this, wherever you find yourself making a decision in thought experiments, just realize that real life isn't as cut and dry. It's not as simple. And think about real life more than you would in thought experiments. But thought experiments can really isolate these things and show us who we are and what we would do in these instances, and maybe show us what we would do in bigger instances. I wouldn't pull the switch. Even if one person died compared to 5, I wouldn't pull the switch, because that would be me sacrificing someone else's life for the life of the many. And I wouldn't do that. Now, leaders, either military or presidential or ministerial, they make that decision a lot of the time. And honestly, in recent years, they've been making that decision too much, to sacrifice the few of their soldiers in order to protect just their own power. And that's very unfortunate. So, really, I just want to ask everybody to think about this and make the decision for yourself. If this made you think, give it a like. If it didn't and you don't like it, give it a thumbs down. But feel free to comment and subscribe. I will be posting more videos like this, I promise. And thank you very much for watching.